Once past the reactive stage of an oil spill, say having completed aerial reconnaissance to document where oil has spread, you will inevitably become embedded and engaged in its incident management. Module 5 examines the SCAT process within the incident command system and in particular the environmental unit. The process is fundamentally the same for other types of environmental emergency management systems worldwide. Topics include working under the operational periods, meetings, and deliverables, understanding the nature and the importance of operational divisions and their supervisors, and then working according to commands, objectives, and in between strategies and tactics. This module takes about 20 minutes to complete.
The Shoreline Cleanup Assessment Techniques process is often conducted under the Incident Command System, known by the acronym ICS. This is particularly true in Canada and the United States. However, it works under any emergency management system worldwide. The ICS is delivered by an emergency response or incident management team that resides in an incident command post. Those people that manage an incident generally stay within the incident command post and rarely get out to see the situation so as to foster a common operational picture or situational awareness. Instead, the incident managers, such as from the planning section, dispatch field observers to be their eyes and ears to gather, document, and communicate what they found. Operational personnel who are hands-on tool tend to focus mostly at the job site. So within the dynamic of the spill, the SCAT members brings the field perspective to the incident management team so they can develop response objectives and strategies. Though the SCAT course isn't about the incident command system, it's still important to review a few of the key elements about it. The incident command system is a standardized incident management organization deployed at the site, such as the incident command post, of an incident to directly supervise field operations. Throughout the incident command system, there is an integration of many organizations and people, many of which you've never worked with before. This applies for those who are undertaking SCAT. This creates special challenges in communications and collaborations, which we'll address further in this module. The incident command system begins with establishing an incident commander, and for multiple jurisdictions, such as a major marine oil spill, a unified command. Once ICS is up and running, there are a lot of tasks to be done in a very structured way. There is the initial response phase. This is where you're undertaking the aerial reconnaissance to determine oil trajectory and what resources are vulnerable and exposed to that oil. And this includes the emergency reactive and transitional phase of a spill. Once incident command has been established and an incident command post within its management team, a decision will be made to invoke the operational planning period, which is a series of meetings and deliverables as shown by the graphic. The two challenges of SCAT is to get engaged in the initial response as soon as possible, and the second challenge is to work within the tight timelines of the operational period. For initial response, it's about being ready to deploy at very short notice and having a grab-and-go kit. To work effectively under the incident command system, it's about training and using guides and job aids and exercising. For a large oil spill that impacts or threatens several jurisdictions, such as governments, federal, provincial, state, local, county, as well as First Nations, also referred to as tribal or indigenous, SCAT typically functions under a unified command known by the acronym UC as an integrated response. This integrated and collaborative approach also applies to the SCAT representatives. It's important to understand how the unified command mission is accomplished. It's done without abrogating agencies or corporations' legal responsibilities or mandates or First Nations rights and titles. This also applies to the SCAT process when undertaking collaborations and consultations and making recommendations. Participating members of the SCAT process should have representation in command. That includes both the primary and the representative SCAT. Establishing unified command and the environmental unit where the SCAT process resides have common features and challenges. Both can be very slow and bumpy at the beginning of an oil spill. Both engage people that have never met before and have different missions and interests and working styles. Both have to balance the technical and social aspects of an oil spill, yet stay within legal boundaries, as according to the Unified Command mission. Both the membership of Unified Command and the environmental unit need to work according to a consensus-based decision-making and not by individual authorities that overrides one another. Working within the Unified Command or the environmental unit is a relationship and trust-building opportunity. Don't lose sight of that or take shortcuts. As soon as you leave the incident command post, whether by foot, vehicle, vessel, or aircraft, you are in the field, serving as the eyes and ears of incident management. The mission of the field observers, such as your SCAT team, is to foster a common operational picture or situational awareness. This could be as simple as verbal communications to extensive data collection. Your field information determines the tactical direction of operations as guided by Unified Command's overarching response objectives and strategies. We will explore the nuances of response objectives, strategies, and tactics later on in this course. Once incident management has been established by an incident management team residing at a command post, it starts to become complex. An example is the Incident Action Plan, referred to by the acronym IAP. This plan needs to be developed for the next day's assignments, both operations as well as your SCAT roles. This plan with its attached assignments is done under the operational period. SCAT is part of this process of producing deliverables and attending meetings. It's a performance measures. The SCAT field data has to be brought back to the environmental unit, looked over for quality control and assurance, reflected upon by the SCAT coordinator and other interested parties. The field information and recommendations have to be formulated and packaged as Shoreline recommendations that go to the Unified Command and then attached to the Incident Action Plan. As such, it's very much of a team effort to get this work done. SCAT members are referred to in the Incident Command System as technical specialists. A technical specialist can work anywhere in the Incident Command System organization. Examples are those that are undertaking oil spill trajectory analysis or looking at weather conditions. As a SCAT member, you'll be working with these people. Deployed SCAT members are also referred to as field observers. Other field observers could be at species at risk that are flying over looking for mammals and birds that may be within the oil impact area. Those that are undertaking oil observations in helicopters and other aircrafts, and those undertaking oil sampling. You will probably come across them as part of your SCAT work in the field. There is a very important step in the ICS process done by operations at the onset of a large marine oil spill. That is to establish geospatial divisions. Divisions ensure operations is more task-focused, such as dealing with a vessel casualty during salvage and containment, to on-water oil recovery, as well as shore-based operations. Divisions help ensure span of control, where a division supervisor is not overwhelmed by too many people reporting to him or her. For SCAT members, the interface with shore-based divisions and their supervisor requires a very positive and cooperative relationship. That is because the division supervisor is essentially the meat between the sandwich of the workforce personnel with the hands-on tools actually treating shorelines and those within the incident management team back at the incident command post. One can always spot a division supervisor as they will be wearing field clothing, looking somewhat haggard and overwhelmed with lots of people working around them. The mapping in divisions have specific nomenclature, such as Division A for vessel casualty site, maybe Division C for on-water response operations, and Division B for shoreline cleanup area. There are going to be many divisions. Later on, we will explain that all SCAT forms will incorporate both the division ID as well as the shoreline segment ID to ensure work is being done in the right place by the right people. Members of the environmental unit reflect upon all field observations and data that's collected, such as oil spill trajectory, bird populations, local oiling conditions, as well as local knowledge that's provided. They are then tasked with packaging much of this information in the way of forms, maps, tables, and more. This is where Shore Protection Program, which embeds SCAT, resides. Generally, the environmental unit is organized as work groups based on different missions and tasks assigned to them. For a large, widespread oil spill, it's beneficial to establish a shore response program. It is inclusive of the SCAT process. The rationale is that offshore operations can compete with shoreline operations that results in missed opportunities during the transitional phase where mobile oil is trapped along the shores, particularly the shore zone with its crevices, coves, and channels, islets, and kelp. This is the last opportunity to recover mobile oil before it strands on shore and becomes a protracted work effort to recover. The recovery of shore zone oil requires operation to shift tactics and now working according to SCAT reconnaissance and field surveys and use shore segment or unit maps. As the video shows, there could be a lot of action near shore and within the shore zone by people using smaller emergency resources like small boats, rakes, shovels, and buckets to remove transitional oil. Establishing a shore protection program helps to garner incident management's attention to time-sensitive requirements such as collecting oil trapped near shore or along the shore zone before it strands. A shore zone program can either be integrated within the environmental unit or a separate unit in ICS organizational structure. The formal communication by SCAT to operations is by the development of and forwarding of a shoreline treatment recommendation form, referred to by the acronym STR. STRs are essentially the operations work orders and assignment for each shoreline unit selected for treatment or cleanup. This is done under the ICS chain of command. For now, the message here is that there's an informal aspect of the incident command system and of the SCAT mission, insofar as meeting with operational personnel within the incident command post and in the field, so as to address their needs and concerns and to explain the role of SCAT is to support them. Establishing a relationship through informal communication fosters more acceptance of STRs by operations. It instills an understanding that the STRs is more than just an operational document, but it's also a social contract, a promise on how to treat an old shore and to what level. The next module explores the importance of working with operations in more detail. SCAT works in an incident command system decision-making framework that begins with incident management's unified command all the way down to operations. SCAT members need to function within this framework, often referred to as management by objectives. Let's explore this framework a little bit further. Emergency response decisions are framed first by objectives. They determine the direction of the response, as such are developed by unified command. Strategies are plans used to carry out the objectives. Strategies are developed as more information is known about the incident, such as during the initial response phase when SCAT is undertaking aerial reconnaissance to determine where the oil is spreading and what resources are being affected. Tactics are the specific actions taken to carry out a strategy, such as how to remove heavy stranded oil off sediment shores. Operations determines the details around those tactics. In essence, the ICS decision-making process is to differentiate between wishful thinking and reality. SCAT's contribution is to provide field information to develop strategies on what, where, when, and how, and to what levels to clean or treat old shores. We'll explore these three decision elements just a little bit further. Objectives are the wish. They are developed by unified command as a constant reminder of what direction you'd like to see the management of an oil spill to go. They are typically one-liners and quite standardized. They need to be specific to the nature of the spill and that they are both measurable and achievable. Here are three examples. Prevent the oil from reaching shores. This is the mission of on-water operations. Remove oil from shores without causing more harm by proven and reasonable measures. This is the mission of onshore operations working with SCAT. Rescue and rehabilitate oiled wildlife. This is the mission of wildlife rescue. These objectives are spoken to at all unified command and planning meetings. They are written into the daily incident action plans. This is why the incident command system is referred to as management by objectives. They keep everybody on track. Strategies are linked to each objective. There can often be several strategies or courses of action that could be taken. They are short statements such as recover nearshore oil to meet the objective of prevent oil from reaching shores. Initial spill conditions such as observations from SCAT, aerial and ground reconnaissance play a large role in defining and developing effective strategies. As information is gathered, strategies can be developed and revised to protect coastal resources at risk. Essentially, reality is starting to set in, based as information comes forward to command and planning and operations. For SCAT, Strategies begs the question what to do with an oiled shore, such as no treatment, manual removal, mechanical removal of the oil, ambient water flushing, do oil sediment relocation, or a combination of these measures. For each oil shore segment, one needs field information to make the appropriate decision. Tactics get into the detail on how operations will achieve a specific strategy, such as is defined in their assignment or work orders. Their assignments would be the shoreline recommendation forms developed by SCAT. Though an STR form may call for manual removal of oil, it is operations that gets into the details of what size of shovel or bucket to use. Reality is now setting in. It becomes a question of whether there's enough buckets and people to actually do the job. Can you even get a workforce to the site to undertake the shoreline cleanup operations? SCAT members need to keep that reality in mind at all times. Essentially, SCAT's role is to reflect the appropriate unified command objective and work between strategies and tactics. This is done without stepping on anyone's toes, command or operations. It is important for SCAT members to work within an emergency management process, hence needing training in the incident command system. It's important to understand the incident action plan, the operational period, the development and distribution of shoreline treatment reclamation forms, and more. Incident command training is modular. It starts with ICS 100 introduction, then there's ICS 200 basic and ICS 300 intermediate. SCAT members should have up to ICS 300. It is standardized training that is available from agency, institutions, and consultants.